Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the How to Chess podcast. Of course, we are a weekly, quick-hitting chess improvement show where we try to highlight a particular theme or a couple themes that can help out your game. And this week, we are joined by a bona fide adult chess improver, as we will discuss. He generally, by day, works in product management for a software company. He's also a chess dad. He's the founder of a chess startup called Acorn Chess. I'm a big fan of Acorn Chess. It designs mini games that you can use um, to learn the basics of chess and help teach kids sort of the way the pieces move and drills on up from there. And as I mentioned, he's an accomplished adult improver. He's gained about 250 FIDE points in his 40s to reach a personal rating peak, which, considering all of the aforementioned other responsibilities, is an amazing feat. And our guest gives a lot of credit of his success for the coaches that he has worked with, which we will be discussing who those coaches are in short order. And he's going to specifically highlight a few things that he's learned from working with these coaches. So before we hop into it, let's welcome him to the show. Andrew Webb, how are you?
Hi, Ben. Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Privileged to be on the show. I feel like it's an illustrious company on your show with the likes of Peter Svidler and Lawrence Trent and so forth. So yeah, very, very happy to be here.
Lawrence Trent would be glad to hear you call him illustrious. So thank you. But yeah, I mean, honestly, people like that, they're just incredible chess players and obviously nice guys and entertaining on top of that. But what you've accomplished to improve as much as you have in your 40s, I mean, there's a lot of people trying to do that and not necessarily pulling it off, myself included, being a dad in his 40s myself. So if you're ready, Andrew, we can hop into the questions and you can share all your secrets. You ready?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Excellent. Okay, so let's start off with a softball, Andrew. Who were your coaches or are your coaches?
Yeah, so I worked with a couple of coaches. I worked with Nigel Davies, Grandmaster Nigel Davies from the UK, between 2013 and 2015. And then I worked with Dan Heisman from the US in 2019 to 2021.
Excellent. And Nigel Davies, of course, has the Chess Improver blog. I've enjoyed some of his posts over the years. And Dan Heisman, quite well known, as you say, coach here in the U.S., actually not so far from where I'm recording here in New Jersey. He lives in Pennsylvania. And Dan, of course, has written some great books in addition to having a YouTube channel. So you chose your coaches wisely. Now, let's unpack what you learned from them. So what are some lessons that you learned from, let's start with Nigel Davies, Andrew.
Sure. Yeah. So Nigel, I think the thing that really I really took away from working with Nigel was around the opening repertoire, and in particular, he focused on an opening repertoire where you're learning the key pawn structures and the key ideas and pawn levers associated to those pawn structures. And although I'd understood a little bit about pawn structures from, I've got quite an extensive chess library, some of which you can probably see here, but it's I really learnt a tremendous amount about what to focus on, and as he started to go through sort of like example reference games, the games made much more sense when I understood both sides were fighting for particular pawn breaks, either trying to achieve them or trying to prevent their opponent from doing so, and that was a sort of massive light bulb moment for me. Rather than just learning openings by rote, I was beginning to sort of understand the mechanics of what you're striving for and what the plans and ideas might be.
Yeah, it's a really good point that it's kind of hard to overstate that even though Chessable, of course, helps you remember lines, that doesn't mean that you should forego trying to learn the ideas. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. And of course, something like having a grandmaster coach like Nigel Davies, that can really save you a lot of time and sort of cutting through the fog and learning what to do in a given position. But of course, there are also books and resources that people can use. I'm always advocating for Chess Structures by Mauricio Flores Rios, which is available on Chessable and is a great way for those of us who are either looking to augment or replace working with a coach. Now, Andrew, are you able to divulge which openings Nigel helped you with?
Yeah, let me do that at the risk of giving too much information away to my opponents. Honestly, he focuses on a lot of the classical openings, so things like the Queen's Gambit Declined, the French Defense, the Col or Collie, depending on how you pronounce it. So those kinds of openings. And I think what's interesting about those is, like, Queen's Gambit Declined, he teaches it from both the white side and the black side. I actually learned it initially with him from the black side, and trying to understand that I need to try and prevent or manage the sort of typical white plans of, like, the minority attack or trying to get the e4 break in. So it was, really kind of, classical openings with a lot of heritage. And also the lines he picked are not necessarily the most fashionable ones that are changing a lot either. So, to your point earlier, I don't have a lot of time, free time to spend kind of keeping up to date with the latest innovations and all these lines. So the lines that Nigel had picked were kind of fairly solid, and I could, once I learned the key ideas, I could reliably play them in tournaments and league games.
That's great. Yeah, for that reason, it can be good to go with the evergreen openings. And Queen's Gambit Decline, of course, has been contested in many world championships, so it doesn't get any more classic than that. And as you say, learning it from both sides is another sort of perk of approaching an opening like that. But as you know, Andrew, this is a short format show, so we might come back to some lessons from Nigel. But let's keep it moving and hear how you're working with Dan Heisman progressed and what you learned from it.
Yeah, so as you said earlier, I mean, Dan, I'd sort of discovered a lot of great content from Dan over the years, from his Novice Nook articles that I'd read and learned a lot from, through to some of the books he's published as well. So the one big, I learned a lot from both coaches, but one of the things I learned from Dan that stands out is he introduced me to this idea of the Groot Exercise. And I'll just maybe briefly explain what the Groot Exercise is. So it was a Dutch professional psychologist who created this back in the 1930s, and he wanted to understand how chess players think. He was a chess master himself. And so he gets the chess player to speak out loud and explain what they're thinking about, given a particular position. And so Dan would give me some of the classic De Groot exercises and also some of his own, and say, okay, Andrew, here's the position. I'm going to start the clock. I want you to start just talking out loud about what you're thinking about in the position. And the first time you do that, it's a very strange sort of out-of-body experience. You're used to thinking silently in your head about the position, and now you're just saying out loud what you think about the position. What the evaluation is, what lines you're looking at, what you're considering, and you just talk out loud. And Dan just would take notes of everything I'd said, and then he'd then basically say, "Tell me when you want to stop." So I would, I think the first one I did with him, I spent over 20 minutes talking. And Dan said, actually, that equates to about 10 minutes in real thinking time if you weren't speaking out loud. And gosh, what an insight I got into my thinking process and the things I was missing. And he went through it very thoroughly. And he was, I made some notes of sort of things I missed. He's like, I hadn't picked up on the bishop pair advantage. I wasn't systematically looking at all the checks, captures, and threats. I wasn't analyzing all the different captures on a key square. I'd looked at a couple of them and just kind of skirted over the other kind of the third capture. And so, yeah, it was just like having a mirror, looking in the mirror and realizing all these things, which I just, you don't see in yourself because you're just thinking about positions. And I did a few of those with Dan, and just incredibly insightful. And I'm glad I actually took some notes from some of them, so that I can actually refer back to them and remember what things I need to keep in mind when I'm thinking about a position.
Yeah, these days, the wonders of technology. When I get lessons with Grandmaster Axel Bachmann, shout out to Axel, I actually record them because the information comes so fast and furious that, yeah, if you don't do that, you're going to be like, well, I learned a lot, but I don't really know what it is. Now, getting back to Dan Heisman, I've interviewed him on the Perpetual Chess podcast in the past. We're reasonably friendly, and I know he's long been a big advocate of these De Groot exercises. And De Groot, of course, wrote this classic book, Thought and Choice in Chess, where he lays out some of the positions that back in the day, as you say, he tested players running the gamut across skill levels, and sort of just wanted to see the differences in what they observed. Now, do you know, did Dan use the actual De Groot position, or did he use like an updated version? Or one of them, I should say.
Yeah, so the very first one I did was the classic De Groot A exercise. So it was one of the original, De Groot called protocols. It was one of the original ones. And then I did some other ones with Dan. Some of the other ones I did with Dan later on were some of his own construction. But the original De Groot A I did, and I think I did maybe De Groot C as well. And I'd never seen. Fortunately, I hadn't seen these positions myself, so I was coming in with fresh eyes and a fresh brain, and trying to make sense of it on sort of on the spot. What am I seeing? What am I thinking about? And but yeah, they're really great kind of positions to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, and a great exercise generally. And while we're always, when we talk about things we learn from coaches, we know that not everyone can afford a coach, as has been discussed in the past. Although they are more affordable than ever, especially if you're able to get online lessons from people anywhere in the world. So of course, Dan is a great coach, but anytime you can find a stronger player, even if they're just a friend of yours, I think that the broader concept that we can extrapolate, Andrew, is just to spend that time thinking through the position. But then, of course, as you say, the golden moment is having someone to highlight either what you missed or what you got wrong. Now, Andrew, you already mentioned what you missed. Is there anything that you remember specifically just being wrong about with these exercises?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got the evaluation wrong in some cases. For some of the lines, I just either didn't go far enough, or I just completely missed some key idea and just misevaluated some positions. So yeah, it was kind of shocking, but shocking in a good way, because what you want to do is find out what you're missing, right?
Right, of course.
You're trying to fill in the gaps, and to get better, you've got to work out, you've got to add new knowledge, but you've also got to kind of like correct and fine tune your thought processes and your existing knowledge. So it really helped in that sense, because yeah, I started to realize the sort of things. I was seeing patterns as I did more of these Groot exercises of things I needed to work on.
Yeah, and one other idea regarding the Groot exercises is, of course, there's so much top level chess going on right now, and it can be so easy to just sort of check the position and turn on the engine. But the combination of being able to first check a position without an engine, and try to form your own analysis of how you think the position is. And then obviously you can turn on the engine. So as Andrew said, that way you can find out, how does my evaluation compare to the quote unquote truth? But the other thing you can do is you can turn on these fantastic announcers, and you can sort of talk your way through what you think is the important about the position, and then turn on like David Howell and Jovanka Hauska or whoever your preferred announcing team is, and then hear what they're saying about it. Now, with a tournament with like a zillion people, 12 different boards going, that might be a little tricky. But as we record this, the World Championship is about 6 weeks out. That would be a good one where you could degrute it yourself and then get world-class commentary to find out what's really happening once you've formed your own misconceptions. So a lot of rich ground here that I think people can take to their own game. So Andrew, we're going to take a break and then sum up what we've learned so far. And then if you could stick around, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your chess daddom and about Acorn Chess. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. He will be back. All right. Take us.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. Mario. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good little Mario. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got that. Got that in Canada, bizarrely enough. I don't know why I got it in Canada. I was in Montreal and I bought this Mario years ago. When of course we could travel. I'm based in Oxford in the UK, and I used to travel over to the US quite a lot for work. But obviously, COVID has ended all that, which is good and bad. I miss the travel a little bit, but it was also a lot of travel at some point. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Where did you go? Did you go all over the U.S. or any place in particular?
I used to regularly go to Boston,
Okay.
on a yeah, like almost every month. Um,
Wow.
and then I used to go to San Francisco less frequently, um, for usually for big events.
Okay.
But yeah, Boston was really where a lot of my team are based, and I would go over there.
Okay. Yeah, both cities have their merits.
Yeah.
San Fran's having a big homeless problem, even bigger than usual. It's going through a bit of a tough time, but
Yeah, I really miss being able to travel over. I used to really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's a great city to visit, if nothing
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
Yeah, although being a dad, I'm sure there's some benefits to staying home too.
It definitely is. Yeah, it was a bit too much travel at one point.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm ready for the second act. If you guys are.
Yeah, I'm just take a glass of water. And
Sure.
all right, let's go.
Okay. Um, And we are back. And before welcoming Andrew back, I just wanted to highlight what to me are the three main lessons I will be deriving from our conversation with this accomplished adult improver. And number one, of course, is the importance of understanding the structures of the openings that you play, as highlighted to Andrew by Grandmaster Nigel Davies. The thing about that is that when you do reach these inevitable moments where you are not sure what the correct move is, when you understand the plan in an opening, it's a lot easier to make an educated guess than if it was just sheer rote memorization. Number two is the point he learned from National Master Dan Heisman about the famed de Groot positions, where it doesn't matter. Again, it's not super important what the positions are, but the act of just sort of spilling your guts onto the page, as it were, discussing everything you see in a position and trying to highlight all the salient points. Just like sometimes you'll hear like a writer say that in order to figure out what they think about something, they need to write it. In chess, it can be helpful to talk through every factor of a position, and from that to realize, as Andrew did, like what the holes or mistakes in his analysis might have been. And of course, those are inevitable. And number three is the point that Andrew highlighted about just reviewing the lessons. Obviously, it can be a big investment to get these lessons from these coaches, and often they're sharing sort of a lifetime of hard-won wisdom. So to just assume that in that amount of time that you're just going to remember everything that they tell you, for us 40-something dads can be a bit foolhardy. So I think it's great that he mentioned that he takes notes and refers back to the lessons in the future. So again, just awesome stuff from Andrew. But I want to get a little more information about how he got these rating points and also just about his day-to-day life. So Andrew, in our email correspondence, you mentioned that your sons are into chess as well.
They are, yes. I mean, COVID has sort of slowed that down somewhat. But yeah, prior to COVID, I was actually traveling pretty much every weekend for my oldest son, who's now 11, for tournaments. He was really playing a lot of chess junior tournaments. And my other son, who's a couple of years younger, is not played as much, but he was also playing in some tournaments for a while. So they're both keen chess players, and yeah, really. I've been enjoying sort of living the chess life through them as well.
Yeah, it's a unique lens for sure, being a chess parent. Now, what was your exposure to chess prior to your older son getting into it?
Yeah, so I had I sort of got into chess as a in my sort of mid teens, I guess. So relatively late compared to to the modern generation who get into it so young, and including my kids in that. And then I went to university and I joined the chess club. I became the captain of one of the chess teams, and I went on to become president of the university chess club. So I started. So in my early 20s, I was already quite a keen chess player, and I started to play tournaments. And then life kicked in, and I probably had like a good 10 years plus where I didn't play any chess at all. And then as I got into my 30s, I started to start playing again. And that's when I realized, I think, at one point that I was just plateauing at about 1700. And I just wanted to see how I could, as I got into my 40s, I wanted to see if I could push through that and break through and into a higher rating. So that's when I started to look into coaching, and hence, working with Nigel and then subsequently Dan.
Yeah, and we've established that you shared some great tips from your coaches, and we know you're a busy guy. Just we don't want to keep you for too long, but I'm curious: was there like some tactics work interspersed in there? Excuse me. Is there other chess study work that you felt that contributed greatly to your success, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I was doing some tactics work. In particular, although I work in software and I love software, I was doing a lot of sort of manual tactics stuff, looking through books, particularly. But I found that tactics are always important and helped. The other big thing I would say is there's a delayed effect between working with coaches or taking on new knowledge and your results improving. And I think that's a really key point, because it takes time. And particularly being a busy person, I wasn't playing that many games in a year. like league and tournament games, I was probably playing like 20 to 25, which is relatively low in the grand scheme of things. So it took me probably longer for my progress to actually manifest itself because I wasn't playing as many and I had a busy schedule. But yeah, definitely tactics is, I've always done a fair amount of tactics training as well in parallel, and also reviewing, anthologies of chess games. I really find that valuable. Looking through kind of either classic games or more recent instructive games is really useful.
Yeah, good stuff. I know that, like, for example, I am John Donaldson has set a good goal is to play 50 competitive games a year, but man, is that tough. I'm
Yeah.
trying to squeeze in another tournament, like trying to plan for the conversation with my wife as we record, and it's yeah, 50 games a year is no small feat, as you say, as responsibilities start to grow. And last thing before we let you go, Andrew, I already gave my own description of Acorn Chess, and we should say my just being as a in my work as a chess instructor, just being a fan of the product is how we got to corresponding via email. But what do you tell people when they don't know anything about Acorn Chess? What do you tell them about the product?
Yeah, so Acorn Chess it's a great tool for working with children and helping them learn chess. And the idea is it gets them engaged with chess with mini games, which maybe they just have pawns, or it just has 5 pawns versus a rook. So really simple setups that children can learn really quickly and get going with, and they start to learn chess. And I trialed it out with my boys. I mean, both my boys knew how to play chess, but I sort of got them, trying out Acorn Chess as I was creating it. And I realized already that they were enjoying it and having fun with both the mini games, but also mazes and different things that weren't readily available in other chess applications. So it seemed like this was something that could be really helpful for helping other children and for either teaching in schools or any other coaching that people were doing with children. And I got a lot of interest. So yeah, that's what Acorn Chess is all about.
Excellent. Yeah, my daughter, my younger child is 5, and she doesn't know how all the pieces move yet. But mini games are what get her. Right now, we just do them over the board. She's an OTB mini game player, but someday we'll get her converted to products such as Acorn Chess too. So Andrew, this has been fantastic. Anything to add before we say our goodbyes?
No, just really thoroughly enjoyed it, Ben. Really, really love the podcast. You're doing great work here, so keep it up.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, and hopefully we can have a longer conversation someday on perpetual chess.
Sounds great.
Okay, take care, Andrew.
Thanks, Ben.